There we go. I believe we are recording now. All right, let's try this again. Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. My name is Daphne Sandville. I am the Government and Economic Development Manager for the City of Fort Lauderdale. I am going to share my screen so you can see the webinar. Let's try this. Let me. All right. And can everybody see my screen? I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. We'll start from the beginning. Welcome to our Solid Foundation Beams program. We're glad that you chose to join us tonight for this program. It's Creating a Business Plan with Josh Orlinsky. While the program Solid Foundation is generally geared towards entrepreneurs, startups, new businesses, we understand that COVID-19 has kind of made businesses pivot. So even seasoned businesses might benefit from this program. Skip that. We've launched an online business support tool, which offers business data, trends, opportunities, and much more. You can get to that on the links below, or you can visit our website at the cityoffortlauderdale.gov. The slides here, the information, the links, all of that will be shared with you tomorrow within 24 hours. A PDF of the presentation will also be shared with you. So please visit the Business Support Center that we have created. A couple of housekeeping items. So as you know, May 3rd is the second of the 4-week courses. It's going to be Capital for Your Small Business. It's very important to know that you have to log in with the phone or computer or email in Zoom, so that way your attendance is recorded using the same registration information. If you are trying to log in with a different one, then you won't be hearing this because it will not allow you to log in. This is recorded and there are no makeup classes. Once you're registered, you've entered the Zoom webinar, no further action is required. Your attendance will be recorded. You must attend all 4 in order to get the certificate signed by the city manager and the mayor. Your name and phone number has to be consistent when you're logging in. Again, indicated at registration, so your attendance is properly recorded, because we're going to take the information that you registered with and compare it with this participant login information. You are only required to register one time. You do not need to register again. The same access information is the same link for all 4 sessions. There will be a Q&A session at the very end. You may exit the webinar when it's over, or you can stay on for the last set of Q&A, which is not required. If you do have questions in Q&A, please put them in the Q&A box. Try not to use the chat box, but we are checking both chat and Q&A if that's available to you. And the recording will be made available to everybody after the webinar is complete. Allow us about 2 weeks so we can download everything, have a transcript for everything, and that is it. But before I get into introducing our wonderful and gracious speaker, I would like to send a special thank you to my team members, Susie Joseph and Crystal Perman. They are on tonight. I don't know how long they're going to stay on tonight, but they are going to help me moderate the session, and they've really helped me keep my cool throughout this whole thing. So again, I just want to thank our co-hosts, SCORE Broward, because they've been incredibly instrumental in designing the content of Solid Foundation series. And together we've been helping new businesses get started on the right foot for the past 5 years. So with that, I would like to introduce our speaker for creating a business plan. It's Josh Orlinsky. He's a seasoned management consultant with close to a decade of experience in the industry. He's worked with over 150 corporations in the industries, including real estate, development, staff, security, government contracting, automotive, hospitality, construction, banking, retail information technology, wholesale, online retail, and legal, with annual revenues ranging from 1 to 900 million. So Josh's information is available. I'm sure he's going to give you his information again. So welcome, Josh. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to join us within this webinar. Today, we are going to be going through creating a business plan. But first, I want to talk a little bit about SCORE Broward. SCORE Broward is a nonprofit that was established 56 years ago. It's an extremely strong chapter of SCORE, which is a division of the SBA. And there's 70 volunteers, 2,500 face-to-face mentoring sessions every year, and there's 5,500 South Florida entrepreneurs every single year that attend our workshop. So you can see that there's a tremendous amount of effort and a tremendous amount of value that comes from SCORE Broward. Today's webinar, as it's been said a couple of times, is being recorded. And once this is done, you'll receive an email with this presentation. And as always, feel free to use the Q&A button at any point to ask any questions as I go through all of these slides. It's a little bit different over these virtual events, but please feel free to ask as many questions as you guys would like. That is the purpose of today, to get the most value out of this, and I hope that you do. So just a little bit about me, even though Daphne did a wonderful job of explaining to you guys who I am. My name is Joshua Orlinsky, and I actually own 4 businesses now. This needs to be updated just a little bit. I own Equiterm Business Solutions, Equiterm Capital, Equiterm Pharma Solutions, and we have now a joint venture for an accelerator for startups called Accelerant Ventures. I have now been doing management consulting for 12 years, and my company, Equiterm Business Solutions and Equiterm Capital, focus on capital raising through debt and equity sources, and management consulting focuses on finance, sales, marketing, management strategies, and execution for startups and established companies. But today, we're going to be talking about creating a business plan. And I start off with this slide so that people understand the importance of just planning, right? What is a business plan overall? A business plan is a way that you can create an idea and actually put your thoughts onto paper in a succinct and organized manner so that you have the best case scenario and the best possible outcome from your endeavor that you're trying to start or trying to modify if you already have an existing business. So I start off with this slide so that everybody understands how important planning your business is. The 2-year success rate of businesses is that 69% actually are successful, 31% end up not being successful and actually fail. Right? And then if you look over at the 5-year success rate, it's just about a coin toss. 51% of businesses will succeed statistically and 49% will not. And why do I put this here? Not to scare anybody, not to make anybody nervous that this might be too much. It's so that everybody understands that the 51% that are successful are constantly planning, constantly outlining their business, constantly refining their business, making sure that they're on track, making sure that maybe the business plan that they started with at the very beginning isn't the exact business that they're doing right now, but at least they're thinking about every single thing within the 2 categories that we're going to talk about, which is the business model and also the business plan that you guys hopefully will develop after this webinar. So what actually is a business plan? I'm sure that everybody on this call today kind of gets an idea of what a business plan is, but what really is it, right? It's not just a couple of pieces of paper where you write down some cool ideas to try to execute on. A business plan is an actual document that looks ahead and tries to conceptualize and determine the directions that you actually want to take your business. Whether that's from day one, you have a spectacular idea, a business plan will assist you in outlining all the different parameters of what a successful business looks like, or even an established company, if you want to create an updated business plan as to where you have been and where you want to be and how you actually want to get there as well. So a business plan, can really be anything. It could be a formal document where it's 100 pages long, outlines every single aspect of what the business is going to try to accomplish. It could be doodles on the back of a napkin. It could be a whiteboard brainstorm, bullet points in an email. There's no real right way to do it, right? But the fact that you go ahead and make the effort to do it, I promise you guys, it'll come back in multiples, and ultimately you'll be able to really understand that idea, that rough idea that you had, how it's actually going to be executed upon. Because I can't tell you how many people have come up to me in the years that I've been doing what I've been doing and said, hey Josh, I have this spectacular idea. And I say, okay, great, wonderful, it sounds really nice. How are you actually going to execute on this idea? How are you going to make money from this idea? How much is this going to cost you? What are the capital expenses that's going to need to be taken to be upfront and outlaid for this whole thing? And once you realize that there's so much more than just an idea, you'll understand why a business plan is so important. And we'll talk a lot about that today. And ultimately, you'll be able to take this and create your own processes from it. So what are the benefits from this whole thing? Obviously, it's a blueprint for your strategy, improvement, direction, and the growth of the company, right? Everybody wants to start a company, but you have to be able to grow it and scale it and do it in an effective manner. And ultimately, a business plan will at least allow you to start to generate and think about how to do that. It could be to explain your business to potential investors, business partners, customers, suppliers, anybody that's actually interested in your idea and want to learn a lot more about it and a lot more of how it's actually going to be executed and grow. These are the kinds of people that may want to take a look at the actual plan that you develop. Oftentimes, it's needed for debt financing. And when I say debt financing, I mean in the form of a loan. When you're going to get a startup loan, a lot of the time you will need a business plan. If you're doing an acquisition loan, a lot of the time you'll need an updated business plan on what you plan to do with the company. So oftentimes you really do need a very comprehensive business plan in order to get a loan or to do something a little more institutional than that of just helping yourself put ideas down on paper. It's useful to share for strategic partnerships and also attract key people to the business. If you want somebody to dive in and put everything that they have into the company that you're trying to start, you want to show them exactly how you're going to execute on this idea that you have. So where do we get started? There's going to be two things that we're going to talk about today that complement one another. There's going to be your business model, and then ultimately there's going to be the actual business plan itself. But it always starts with a business model. Okay, what exactly is a business model? It encompasses all of the things you see right here, from your value proposition to the customer segments that you plan to target, the customer relationships you have, the channels you plan to utilize, revenues and cost structures, key resources, key partners, key activities. All of these different things encompass what an actual business model is. Again, we're moving forward from an idea and actually creating a business model that's scalable and that will ultimately become successful. And we'll talk about the most important components of what a business model is and how you can actually apply it to whatever you're trying to do. So first is your value proposition. What is a value proposition? It explains how your product or service actually solves or improves on a problem. Every good business is trying to solve a problem, whether that's a restaurant solving the problem of being hungry, whether that is a software that's solving a problem of logistics. Every good business needs to solve a problem, and you want to explain in your value proposition how exactly your product or service is going to solve a problem. What benefits can your customers actually expect from your product? And why should your customers buy from you over somebody else? If you look on the bottom left of the screen, it kind of encompasses three very specific and very distinct categories. what the brand is, what the experience the customer is going to have, and then also, obviously, what the product or service that you're selling is. And ultimately, all of that creates what's called a value proposition that makes people believe that, you know what, this idea is going to solve this problem and solve it better than anybody has so far. For example, everybody knows MacBook and Apple, right? But what makes MacBooks better than that of a Windows computer, if that's how you believe it to be? Personally, I work on a PC, but I do understand, and in my mind, for some reason, I'm trained to think that a MacBook is probably a better computer than that of a PC. It's because Apple does such a spectacular job of explaining what their value proposition is within every single product that they sell, whether that's an iPhone, whether that's a MacBook, whether that's a set of AirPods, whatever it is, they always show what their value proposition is. For example, with this MacBook, right? They show this and they say, and it says that Apple has great value proposition for every product. One that's particularly impressive is the statement for this MacBook. And if you look, it says the best for the brightest. It's extremely simple, but it's extremely powerful. Apple emphasizes how lightweight the product it is, while also speaking to how advanced the technology is. And they always market the idea that they're light years ahead of everybody else. When realistically, if you look at all the components that make up a MacBook, really, other than the operating system, it's pretty much made up, give or take, of the same components. But they are so good about explaining what their value proposition is. Ultimately, it makes you believe in their brand, it makes you believe in their product, and makes you want to buy their product, even if it's extraordinarily more expensive than that of the competitors. Excuse me. Number two is you want to think about the customer segmentation. And what exactly is the customer segmentation? It's the process of actually dividing your customers into groups based on common characteristics so that you can market effectively and appropriately to them. So if you're selling something like an iPhone, that's something that most people want to buy. But if you're selling something that is very specific to a specific age group, a specific location, whatever it might be, you want to really break out your customers and figure out, who am I marketing this product to and how am I marketing it to them? Is a younger generation going to receive a message different than an older generation, for example? I believe so. So you want to kind of break down your product, break down your service, and figure out the customers that may want to buy this product or service, and then start to figure out how to market directly to those types of people. In business-to-business marketing, for example, a company might segment the customers according to a bunch of different factors. Maybe it's the industry that they're in, or the number of employees that they have. Maybe products that they've previously purchased from another company, or the location that they're in. Down here in South Florida, we have a whole different market than that of Wisconsin, whether that takes into weather, whether that takes into income, whether that takes into age differences, whatever it might be. And you want to try to think about the customers that you're going to be selling to and the markets that you're going to be selling into, and then segment them, figure out how you're going to sell your product to them. What channels are you going to use? How does the product get from the company to the actual customer? Is it that you're going to sell it over the phone? Is it going to be a physical channel, meaning is it going to be a brick and mortar establishment? Are you going to sell over email, over social media? Are you going to do mobile, whatever it might be? You want to figure out how you're going to take that product and sell it to the customers, and what channels you're going to use to sell to those customers. And then one huge component that you want to think about is the customer relationships that you want to have. Customer relationship management is so important, right? Because you can sell a customer a product, but if they feel that the customer service or the customer relationship that you have is poor, they may not want to come and buy additional products for you or buy the same product over again. You want to take into account customer satisfaction. How are you going to keep your customers loyal to you and want to continue to buy additional products or services from you? How reliable are you? Are you constantly improving, or are you staying stagnant? And how are you going to constantly improve? What kind of marketing do you have, and how are you marketing? How does that marketing make them feel? and the quality and support that you give, the quality of the service or product or the support that you give to them all really matters in the customer relationship. For example, I use Apple a lot because a lot of people can relate to it. Me personally, I buy iPhones every 2 years or so. Every time my contract comes up. But why am I so loyal to Apple? Do I like the customer satisfaction that I get? Do I like the quality of the product that I have? Do I like that they're always, even if it's minimally, improving the product every single couple years? Right? I have a customer relationship with this company that I want to continue to buy from them. And just like that, within your business, startup, established company, you want to have a customer relationship with them to create a brand and to create customer loyalty to your company. The revenue streams of your company is a huge component of your business model. Basically, how does your company make money, right? Is your company going to make money? How does your company make money from each segment? What kind of pricing are you going to have? Are you going to be a very high luxury brand with high pricing? Are you going to be a very cheap brand? It doesn't matter. It matters the fact that you know what you are and you're not in the middle of everything, and you know where your revenue is going to come from. Revenue, just for those who may not know, it's just an interchangeable word for sales. How are you going to make sales? What value is your customer actually paying for? Is it a very high value for a very high price? Is it a good value for a low price? You want to really identify that because you want people to think about your company in a very specific way. You don't want them to be lost thinking, this company is like kind of expensive sometimes, kind of cheap sometimes. I'm not 100% sure what kind of brand they have and what kind of products they're selling. You want somebody who is in a market that has a cheaper price point. You want to be in that market. If you're a very expensive price point, you want to stay in that market, and you want to figure out those streams of revenue and make sure to understand what value your product brings or service brings to them and how much that is worth. Because you don't want to sell a product that should be valued extremely high, but you're selling it too low, and vice versa. So really think about the revenue streams and the revenue model integrated into the entirety of the business model, your branding, your marketing, your advertising, your sales structure, everything that you're going to build within this business and this business model. Think about the revenue streams, think about your price point, and execute on that strategy and stick to it. The key resources that you're going to need. What are the most important assets that you're going to that's going to make your business model work? Some things to think about when I say key resources, okay? That has to do with the finances of the company. How are you going to actually lift this company off the ground? And if I'm not mistaken, the next part of this series is raising capital for your business. So it's something that you really want to think about within your business model. Is, do I need am I a heavy capital intensive company to get this thing lifted off the ground? Meaning, do I need a lot of money? Am I trying to start a giant, software business that needs a ton of money for my algorithm? Or am I a service company and I don't really need that much money? You want to think about it and think about how much money actually do I need to start this business. And I encourage everybody to realize that the number one, and I don't have this statistic, but I believe at least the number one reason that companies fail at the very beginning is because they are underfinanced, meaning they either raise too little money or they don't have enough money to keep themselves going. I encourage you within your business model and your business plan to really understand how much money for a 6-month period or a year period at the very least that you're going to need in order to operate this business if you're really taking it very, very seriously, and make sure to raise that money in some sort of fashion, whether that's through investors, whether that's through lines of credit, whether that's through bank debt, whatever it might be. Really hone in on that because it's a very important component of the beginning of any business and the business model that you're going to create. And how are you going to have an ongoing understanding of the finances of the business and how much money you need at any given time. Think about the physical resources. Am I a manufacturing company? Meaning, do I need machines? Do I need vehicles or not? But you really want to think about what are the physical resources that I need to get this company lifted off the ground. Intellectual resources or intellectual property. Are you creating a unique product that you should probably get patents on, or else it's going to be taken and replicated? Do I need customer lists so I can buy customer lists and get on the phone and call them? What do you need intellectually in order to secure your business and secure the product or service? You want to think about that a little bit as well. And lastly, at least from this slide, is the human capital or the human resources that you're going to need, meaning how many people do I need? Who do I need? Do I need software engineers? Do I need scientists? Do I need customer service representatives, salespeople, HR, accounting people, whatever you're trying to do? Think about it not only on the first day kind of basis, but think about it on a global level. Where do I actually want to be with this business? And kind of plan out even on a timeline. At this point in time, I can be by myself. Everybody wears a million different hats when you first start your business. Your human resources, your accounting, your everything at the very beginning. Eventually, you're going to need to think about the human capital that you're going to need for your business, and that goes into this key resources component of your business model. And I believe lastly is, what is the cost structure? And to make it a little more simple, the way you thought about your revenue, the way you thought about the capital intensive nature of the business and how much money you need to have at the beginning, think about how much it's going to cost to continue to operate the business, and what are the actual most important costs. What are the most expensive costs? What activities are you going to need that are going to take up the majority of your budget in order to continue the business? Because ultimately at the very beginning, you might be able to use the capital that you raise, but ultimately you're going to need to generate a certain amount of revenue, create a budget, create whatever you need in order to figure out the expenses that you believe that you'll need on an ongoing basis, because ultimately it will actually start to dictate how many customers do I need every month, what should I charge these customers if I plan to have 10 customers at $10 a product, and that's $100. Will that $100 cover all of my operating expenses for this business? So you really want to take into account the cost structure and round out the business model, okay? So why do I talk about the business model first? The business model is that idea phase, right? The idea of thinking about all these different components. I thought about how I'm going to make my money, how I'm going to brand my company, how I'm going to sell my products, who I'm going to sell my products to, how much it's going to cost me, what do I need, who do I need, right? That's all thought processes. And then we get into actually writing a business plan. Because writing a business plan takes this whole business model that you've been thinking of maybe for a day, maybe for a week, maybe for 10 years. And it actually puts it down on the paper and allows you to really physically go through each one of these items of your business model and think even deeper about them and write them down, or do with whatever you want to do to create a business plan from it. But think extremely on a very intimate and micro level about what each one of these categories mean to you and mean to your business. And I believe that I saw some chats coming in just while I do this, but okay, I think that we're okay. Okay, moving into the business.
Josh, there's actually a question from Carol.
Okay.
She wanted to get some clarification that the cost structure is both number 7 and number 9 on the diagram.
Number 7 and number 9. I'm sorry, I didn't follow which 7 and 9 is, but if you're talking about cost structure of the business, that's the operating costs of the business. How much does it actually cost to operate on a day-to-day basis, on a month-to-month basis? And maybe what you're talking about is the difference between cost structure and then the capital structure. If you wouldn't mind giving a little more clarity.
Let's see.
And if not, it's okay, but please feel free to follow up. But there's a difference between operating costs and capital expenditures. Capital expenditures are that you need to buy assets to basically lift the company off the ground, for lack of a better way to put it. Cost structure is how much does it cost on an ongoing basis every single day, every single month to run your business. And if there's a little more from that, please feel free to put in the Q&A. So like I was saying, writing a business plan, right? Takes all those ideas, puts them down on a paper, or puts them down in any capacity that you guys feel comfortable with. And what goes into a business plan? Well, overall, it's the business model, but there usually is a pretty standard way that you would create a pretty detailed business plan. And here are the table of contents in which we will talk about each one of these and dive in a little bit deeper into each one of these components. One is the executive summary, the company description, market analysis, competitive analysis, management and operational structure, marketing and sales plan, financial summary, and projections. And I think that once we dive in, you'll understand why all of these come together to create the entirety of how your business will run and how you're going to execute on your business model. So first is your executive summary. And I want to preface this by saying that usually when we do business plans, and we do very intricate, very serious business plans for purposes of acquisitions or getting a very heavy loan of some sort, but usually when we do these business plans, I actually save the executive summary for last. Even though it comes first in the business plan, I save it for last. And why do I do that? Because an executive summary kind of outlines and summarizes the entirety of the business plan at the very beginning. It doesn't go into detail, but it summarizes it. What it talks about is a description of the product or service and the problem you're trying to solve, the target market that you're trying to enter, the competition, a little bit of the financial overview, the team that you need, the funding resources that you need, milestones that you plan to hit, and then evidence of financial stability. And once we get through these next couple of slides, you'll realize why I saved this for the end, because what the business plan is going to do ultimately, and then subsequent sections, is really, really dive into each one of these categories. And by the end, you'll be able to summarize it much better than at the beginning. So that's just a little piece of advice just from myself, but you guys feel free to do it however you're comfortable doing it. Ultimately, an executive summary should outline all of these different components. First and foremost, you want to get the basics out the door. What is the company? Who is the company? Give your company description. First and foremost, what's your business name? To me, when we do work for a ton of different clients and startups alike, choosing a business name is actually a little bit more difficult for some than you might think, but you want to outline the business name and why it actually matters to the company. Is it good for marketing? Is it good for SEO? I would encourage everybody to think a little bit deeper of just, instead of naming it Joshua Orlinsky Inc., think about what you're doing, how Google will search it. Is it available as a URL? Meaning, is there a website available for it that you feel comfortable with? Take a little bit of time, to really think about the business name and what it means to the overarching goal of the business, and then choose the business name. The company description will also get into the business goals or KPIs, the key performance indicators, the key things that you want to accomplish within this business, and how big do you really want this business to get? Do you want to be a multi-billion-dollar company? And how are you going to get there? Those become really, really intricate business plans. Are you going to be a successful business that's local, that ultimately is a great revenue generator and a great profit generator that can keep salaries going, whatever it might be? No dream is too big, and no business is too small. So figure out what your personal business goals are and put them into this company description. The competitive advantages should go in here, meaning what makes you better than those around you, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Again, like we were talking about in the business model, the target customers that you plan to pinpoint, the location of the business. Is it going to be an online business? Is it going to be a physical business? You really want to think about, or is it going to be a hybrid of both nowadays? Think about, if you need a location, how much that's going to cost, so on and so forth, and put it into the company description. The mission statement of the company, meaning what are you trying to accomplish? A company is not there to necessarily just make money. Obviously, that's the byproduct. That's what everybody hopes to do, is make money. But realistically, a really good business is trying to solve a problem, like we said, and you want to make a mission out of what you're doing. Whether that mission is to feed the world, whether that mission is to feed Broward County, or whatever it is, you want to do. I've seen mission statements that say, I really want to make a ton of money. And to me, that's not good enough, in my opinion. You should really have a mission, have a dream, have a drive, and those are the most successful businesses that I know. Outline the product or service that you're trying to sell, when you plan to open, and the business structure, meaning, are you going to be an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp, and why you plan to do that. An LLC is good for one thing, a C Corp is good for another, an S Corp is good for another, a partnership is good for other things. Research a little bit about it and figure out what your business structure looks like, ultimately how you're going to file and why you're going to file it in that capacity. Next, you want to do a market analysis. So we've already gotten past the basics, right? We've gotten past what we're selling, who we are, what's our name. We want to then figure out what's the market that we're trying to enter, right? And that could be physical and that could actually be product based, meaning in this market that we're entering, whether that's Broward County, what is the consumer behavior in that market, in the industry that I'm trying to enter? Who are the competitors in that market? How do people in this market usually sell? And am I going to do the same thing or am I going to do something different? If I promote in one way, is this market going to be receptive to it? You want to think about the location and the product and the customers a little bit about in the market that you're trying to enter, and really think about all of these different components and research them. Research the statistics on them, research on Google, research anywhere that you guys want, but really think about the market that you're trying to enter and analyze all the different components that come along with it. I saw that there was a question between a mission and a vision statement. I'm not 100% sure, and maybe it's my naiveness, I'm not 100% sure what a vision statement is per se. A mission statement is kind of what I explained. I can imagine a vision statement is something about the vision of your company and where you want it to be, but I'm not 100% clear on the vision statement. I apologize. So moving on, so we outlined who we are. We talked a little bit about analyzing and really analyzing the market you're trying to enter. You really want to have a great understanding of the location and the products and the customers that you have within the market that you're trying to sell within. And then you want to go into a competitive analysis. So within that market assessment that you're going to do, you really want to also research the competitors that are in the market, right? Because unless you have a completely unique and completely new, fresh, never heard of product, there's a chance that there are some competitors within the space that you're trying to enter. So you really want to analyze those competitors, whether that's in the specific market that you're entering or in relative markets that you're entering or in relative locations that you're trying to enter. What are their strengths? What do they sell their price for? What is their price for the service or product that they're selling? How convenient are they? Are they super inconvenient? Do they have a ton of inventory? Does it make you vulnerable? And you want to really think about all of those different components of the competitors around you. What are the weaknesses that they have? Because ultimately you want to find those weaknesses and then take advantage of those weaknesses and make it your strengths. What are their basic objectives? Do they seek to continue to grab market share? Are they selling at a premium, meaning are they selling at a higher price for some reason? Try to see the industry through their eyes. Take a step back from your thoughts and from your idea and step into their shoes and actually, in a way, try to think about how they're going to feel when they see you move in down the road. What are they going to do? Are they going to push additional marketing? Are they going to create new products? Are they going to put more money into inventory so that they flood the market? What exactly are they going to do and what are they going to try to achieve? And how is that going to affect you? You really want to flip it for a second and figure that out for yourself, because I promise you, people don't really love when you come in and try to take market share from them. But if you're doing something that's better than they are, that's the beauty of the world the business world that we live in. Think about what marketing strategies they use and figure out their advertising, their public relations. Do some secret shopper is what I call it, at least. Make a couple of phone calls, pretend to be a customer of theirs. Figure out a little bit about what they do, how they sell their product. Do they have spectacular customer service? Figure out what those weaknesses might be, figure out what those strengths might be, and use it in your business model and in your business plan. And one big thing is that how are you going to actually take away market share from them? If they're already really established, if they've been in the area for a long time and you're trying to start something similar, how are you actually going to do that? And I think that that's one thought process you really want to go down. And like I was hinting to before, how exactly are they going to respond when you enter the market? Are they going to do a whole bunch of different things to make sure that you don't gain market share from them? My guess is probably yes. But if you sell a better product or a better service or a more competitive price, or you have more inventory or whatever it might be, all play a factor into how you actually are going to gain market share from them. So actually really think about the competitors that you're entering the space within, and think about how they're going to be sensitive to you entering into that space. How do you, Calvin Harris asked, how can you find out who the competitors are and when, and excuse me, and where we can find out the market information from? To be honest, there's no right way. I would say that if you're trying to start a service or if it's in a physical location, my best friend is Google. I will Google everything. I will research until the end of the world, till I feel comfortable about something that I'm not sure about, whether it's in my personal life or not. I would just start with Google. I'd start with, if I'm trying to start a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, in downtown Fort Lauderdale, I would Google restaurants in Fort Lauderdale. I would look into each one of their websites, figure out how their websites look. How are they marketing? Do I see them on Instagram? What does their Instagram look like? What does their social media look like? Like all these different things, I would start to look to see who they are and how they are. I might even go there and try out their food and see if I like it and see if it's within my arena and if I can do better. Like there's a lot of things that you can do, but I would start by just where you feel comfortable and dive in from there. And I hope that answers that question. I apologize if I say the name right. Brita Mitchell asks, does a business plan for a nonprofit, from a nonprofit differ from other types of business structures? I want to be honest, is that I'm not a really savvy with nonprofits as much as for-profits. I've worked with very few nonprofits. I can imagine that they're a little bit different. I know that there are, for example, when you get to the finance side, restricted funds versus unrestricted funds, bylaws and board issues that you might have to take into account. So I would say that there are going to be differences between a nonprofit and a for-profit. I would think that it might need just a little bit more research in between the differences between the two. But for clarity, this is a very much for-profit business plan. I'm sure that there's a lot of the same overlaps, but there are going to be a few different things that you might have to take into account, like 501c3 applications, for example, and how you plan to complete a 501c3. And there's a lot of those different types of components I would imagine you're going to have to think about. Emily Bravo asked, would you recommend updating a business plan for an existing for-profit business? I would say yes. I would always recommend, if there's a purpose for it, right? If you feel that you could be doing better, if you want to put your thoughts down on paper differently, if you want to figure out where you started and what the thought process was when you first started that business, and you want to get to a different point, or you want to make more money, or you want to turn something around because things aren't doing so great, it's not a bad practice to start to complete a new business plan, because it really, like I said, it really just organizes your thoughts and puts them down on paper and makes you think about things that you may not have actually thought about throughout this whole time period. Believe me, I've dealt with hundreds, literally hundreds of businesses, and I can tell you that there's very few that actually are the business they started with at the very beginning. And it couldn't hurt to really start and just think about all these different components and write them down. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a giant plan. It could be something that you're really just jotting down a couple of notes and thinking deeper about all these different sections. So I think it is a good practice if you have the time. You get so deep into the thick of things sometimes when you're running a business every single day that sometimes these things get lost and you don't have as much time to focus on the actual business. It's not a bad practice to create a business plan for an existing business whatsoever. It'll just help you organize everything that you probably want. Okay, I am going to move on for a second. Please feel free to ask more questions, but I'm going to move on to another slide. Another component of the business plan that you want to think about is the management and the operational structure of the business. Some key elements to include is the organizational structure. How is the company actually going to be organized? And you can kind of see the org chart and a sample org chart on the right side of the screen here. How are people going to actually, what is the hierarchy of reporting? How is the middle management going to look? How are the C-level management going to look? How is everybody going to report to those upwardly? And how is the CEO eventually going to get all that information? Now, I say this respectfully in the sense that I understand that at the very beginning, like I said way back earlier in the presentation, if you're starting a new business, you're going to wear a tremendous amount of hats. You're going to be everything for a little while, unless you have a partner or a few partners, and all of you guys are going to be wearing a lot of different hats. But a business plan is thinking forward. I want to think about how I'm going to scale my business. I want to think about how I'm going to actually grow the business and grow it effectively, and make sure that my reporting structure, that my organizational structure, in the future is going to be effective, cost effective, make money still. How am I going to hire? When am I going to hire? And how everybody's going to report to each other? It couldn't hurt just to think about that, because like I was just saying, when you're deep in the thick of running a business, it's sometimes a little difficult to take a step back and really understand these kinds of things. So it could not hurt at the very beginning of this whole endeavor to really think about it and to map it on an organizational chart. Think about the legal structure of the business. Like I was saying before, are you going to be an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp? Why you're going to do it? Actually make an educated decision as to why you're going to file that way. For example, if you're going to file an LLC, why is that the best case scenario for you? If you're going to file a C Corp, is that because you want to have stock in the company that you want to sell for investment purposes? Really think about the legal structure and why you're filing that way. You can do a little bit of research on that as well and choose from it. It's everywhere, and it's actually quite simple once you really understand it. Ownership information, who's going to own what percentages of the company? Are you going to have a board of directors? Do you plan to have a board of directors in the future? Put the profiles of the management team in there. If it's just you, put your bio. If it's you and some partners, put their bios. What are their profiles and what qualifies you? Or what passion do you guys have to make this a successful business? And you want to put that in there. Think about the number of employees you want to have, and it's feasible to have and profitable to have is a big one. Over the course of a couple months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, however far out you want to go. How many employees do you actually want to have? The actual operational strategy, and how you're going to streamline this whole thing. If you eventually become 20 million, 30 million, 40, $50 million business, how are you really going to streamline that business and make it effective, efficient? Make sure that you're spending the exact amount of money that you're supposed to, not overspending and not underspending at the exact same time. And again, like I said before, how is management going to receive the most important information? Because eventually, if you become a sizable enough business, could be $1 million, could be $2 million in sales. How are you as the CEO going to get that information that you once were able to get because you are on the ground floor? You need to get it still at the top floor, but you needed to go through a reporting structure that's effective and efficient. You want to think about all of these different components when trying to think about your management and operational structure of the company. One of the most important things in the entire business plan is your marketing and sales plan. Okay, marketing and sales is one of the most important things in a business. It means how am I actually going to take my product or service and allow people to know about it, right? Marketing is letting people know what you do, how you do it, and or what you're selling and how you're selling it. Sales is how you take those people that have received that message and actually make them buy the product, right? So what is a marketing strategy encompass, and what should you think about in a marketing strategy? For example, kind of goes into customer segmentation, is you want to think about how you're going to sell the product or how you're going to brand your product. Is it going to be an expensive brand? Is it going to be a cheap brand, mid-tier brand? How is it going to make people feel? And how are you going to market to the people that are going to buy the product? If you're going to sell through Facebook, social media, TikTok, Instagram, traditional campaigns, meaning billboards, bus ads, whatever it might be, what is actually going to be most effective for your product? Is it going to be TV, radio? There's so many different outlets to let people know what you're actually doing. A lot of the times I even put my heaviest marketing budget in the first couple months of the project, understanding that I need people to know what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and why I'm better at doing it than those that may have done it before me. So I want to market heavily and really make them understand what I'm trying to do here and how it's going to make them feel. Because branding goes into marketing, and branding, for lack of a better way to put it, is how people feel about the marketing that you present and about the products that you're actually selling or services. And then create a sales plan from that, right? Marketing is going to get people to call you or email you or DM you or whatever it might be. You want to figure out, okay, once I get that in, how am I going to sell them on the product that I marketed to them? Am I going to be a heavy salesperson? Like, am I going to push and do follow-up calls, do drip email campaigns, do all of these things that are gonna really make people want to buy it? Am I going to be a passive salesperson? Know what I have, know what I can do, know what I can sell it for, and passively sell people. Ultimately, you want to think about how you're going to announce the product, how you're going to differentiate yourself, how you're going to make people feel. And then ultimately, once they come in the door and say, hey, what exactly are you doing? What exactly are you selling? I'm definitely interested. How am I actually going to make them buy the product at that point in time? So you really want to focus on all those different components and bring them together to create a marketing and sales plan that's most effective for your product and your company. And one of the last things, in my opinion, just because I've been in finance my entire career, is the financial summary and projection. I believe this to be one of the most important components of any business, because not only does it figure out the revenue, how much it costs to sell your product, what expenses you need for your company, but it also tells you if it's gonna be a profitable business once you're doing this business plan. The key components of a financial summary and a financial projection are the revenue projections, meaning how much do I think that I'm gonna sell? You could do it on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, on a 5-year basis. It depends how far out you're really trying to think and trying to project. But you want to try to figure out, how much demand am I going to have? How many products do I plan to sell? How many services do I plan to sell? How much do I plan to sell them for? Where am I selling it? And have these assumptions from it, saying, if there's, for example, the way that I would think about something, again, a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. I know that there's X amount of people in Fort Lauderdale. My brand and my product, I'm selling at a higher price. So this is the income level that there's this many people in this income bracket in Fort Lauderdale. I think that I'm going to get, start off with 0.5% of that income bracket, move on and move up over the course of my marketing and such, ultimately creating my demand and my revenue projection. So you really want to think really deep, not just say, I think that I'm going to make $100. Think a little bit deeper. Think about all those different components that can create the most realistic sales projections that you can make. And then cost of goods sold, meaning what does it take to what are the expenses that actually take to sell the product? If I'm, for example, and I know you guys have seen me drinking water, sorry, I've been talking a lot, but to create this water bottle, the cost of goods sold that go into selling this water bottle, meaning the plastic that I have to buy to create it, the mold that it takes to create the bottle itself, the water inside of it, and then potentially how to actually get it out of your factory and to the stores that you're selling it, all go into how the cost of goods sold of the product and how you actually sell and create the product. So that's your cost of goods sold. Really break it down, and I would itemize it. I would really think deeply about it and go into every little thing about how much it's actually going to cost me to create a product or to sell my service. Also project out the expenses that you think it's going to take. Expenses are rent expense, licenses and permits, whether it be meals and entertainment, all these different components, even payroll expenses. You want to think about all these different types of expenses and try to figure it out on whatever basis you're doing these projections. Like I said, monthly, yearly, multiple years. You want to think about how much it's going to cost when I keep creating these revenue projections. If my revenue goes up, my variable costs will go up as well. My fixed costs will stay the same, meaning fixed costs are like rent. Rent really doesn't go up unless it's about 3% every year. You know that your fixed costs are going to stay the same. But if I'm selling more water bottles, it's going to cost me more money in materials to make right? So you really want to think about how to project out your expenses and put them down into your revenue, into your financial projections. Figure out your cash flow and your profitability target. So if I sell the water bottle at $1, I make it for 50 cents, my projected expenses are 20 cents. That means I have 30 cents left over in every single water bottle that I'm selling, ultimately deriving cash flow from this. And how am I going to actually use that cash flow to continue to grow my business? You want to create some sort of cash flow summary, understanding how much cash is going to be in the company at any given time, because unfortunately you cannot run a company on $0 in cash. So you want to make sure that with your revenue projections, your cost of goods sold, your profitability, your expenses ultimately translate to cash. And what does that take into account? That takes into account debt servicing. If you take a loan, you have to make sure to service that loan. If you have credit cards, you have to make sure to pay those credit cards off. So you want to incorporate all of those different components into your financial projections and make sure that you plan for everything. Plan for unplanned expenses, plan for things that may not happen. God forbid there's another, God forbid there's a hurricane and your company is dependent on people coming into a store. You want to plan for the potential of things happening. Unfortunately, like we all kind of experienced, very much experienced, COVID was very real. It was very unplanned for a lot of different businesses. Not that anybody can plan for something like COVID, that was an extreme, but ultimately you want to plan for things that you might not foresee, and maybe even create a line item on your projections that plan out something on a monthly basis that you might not think about. Every financial projection that I do, I will put something called miscellaneous expense buffer, meaning something that I'm not thinking about, that I don't know. I want to create a budget item for things that I don't know. $1,000, $10,000, $1 million, it doesn't matter. I create that just in case I'm not thinking about something, to make sure that my company is still going to be profitable within anything that happens. And then ultimately, lastly, you want to create profitability targets. I always say that if, just like with a bow and arrow, right? If you don't have an actual target to shoot at, then what are you actually aiming towards, right? You want to create all of these targets, whether that's profit targets, revenue targets, expense targets, making sure you stay within budget. You want to make sure that you know what you're trying to accomplish at any given period that you're creating these projections for. And you want to put them into this business plan and ultimately summarize it all together to show, listen, I created this product. I know what I'm doing. I know it's going to be profitable. I know I'm going to kill it, ultimately creating a super solid business plan that you yourself can go feel comfortable saying, you know what, I'm ready to invest my time. I'm ready to invest my future. I'm ready to invest all this money potentially in this project because I've thought about every single component, and I know, to the best of my knowledge, this is going to be an endeavor worth doing. So that is really the global aspect, the global understanding of what a business plan goes into. And if there's any questions, please feel free. But over the next 24 hours, you'll probably receive an email with this webinar, with the PDF copy of this presentation, and you guys can take it and use it and follow along with at least the table of contents and maybe the thought processes that we discussed today, and create something for yourself. I would encourage everybody, just for a second, a little bit more about SCORE, continue your search, right? If you're trying to start a business, there's so many other components than just a business plan. Maybe continue the search on SCORE's website. There's workshops, there's mentoring, there's counseling services. Some people that volunteer for SCORE have done business for 30 years, taking companies public, whatever it might be, and they're volunteering time to try to help those who may not have as much experience. Go ahead, check out broward.score.org and see if you find something that you are interested in going about. If you want to talk with somebody, you can schedule a mentoring or counseling session with a SCORE volunteer, usually about 45 to 60 minutes, and you talk to them about what you want to talk about. They'll help you, they'll give you some suggestions, and Broward SCORE has a 90% client satisfaction rating, which is pretty good. You can make an appointment for a counseling session. There's never a charge. You go to the broward.score.org, go to get started and find a mentor and request a meeting. And lastly, thank you guys for joining me here today. I hope that that we got a little bit out of this and that there was a ton of thought processes that come from this. Always feel free to reach out to me just for questions, for anything that might spark your interest. I'd be more than happy to respond to emails, to phone calls, text messages, whatever it might be. All my information is provided here, and I know there are a couple questions that I'll answer now, but thank you guys so much for joining. No questions as of right now, I don't believe so.
There was, Josh, there was actually one. It was from Olivia Sanchez. I don't know if she's still on, but she wanted to know how she could get more assistance from SAM regarding some assessments. And I think that's the system for award management on the federal level.
Yes,
Is it?
that's for government contracting, the SAM database, I would imagine.
Correct.
So I'll be honest with you, I've only done selective government contracting, so I'm not 100% certain. I'm sure that you can go online and you can Google this kind of thing, but there are people that know government contracting a little bit more than I do, and I understand a little bit about it, but I think that I would probably be not the best source for the government contracting or the SAM side of it. I apologize.
Okay. Let me see. I think it's more of thank you, thank you, thank you. Much appreciated. So thank you, thank you. If anybody has any questions, we're doing Q&A now. If not, if you do have questions afterwards, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our contact information will be sent to you within 24 hours. Again, let's see.
We do have
Yes.
one more. Somebody have one more question. James B asks, how does one hone in on financial projections section?
How does one hone in? That's an interesting question. I mean, financial projections, like I said, they're very important in my opinion, but I would say that it's just important to think about all these different components and try to make the most detailed and educated financial projection that you can. To hone in on it is just really to think about all the different components that go within it, whether that's the sales projections or how much it's going to cost you to make your product, the expenses that you think that you'll need, how much profitability from this company that you think that you're going to make, how are you going to distribute funds to your owners. All these different components, I think, might answer the question of how to hone in deeper. Just like with the entire business plan, it's about taking it section by section and doing your best job about thinking deeply about how to create answers for each one of those categories, ultimately providing you with the best case scenario for yourself. And I hope that that answers the question.
I was scrolling to see if we had any more. All right, the rest are just internal questions, I believe. Let's see. All right. Susie, see anything?
Just about the PDF. We'll provide the PDF.
So the presentation and PDF, the materials that Joshua presented will be given within 24 hours. Please allow us about 2 weeks to share the recording. It will be on our website. That will also be shared with you. We'll be emailing all the participants that logged on today. So again, thank you, Joshua.
I just wanted to add one more thing before everyone logs out. I just wanted to mention that if you know upfront that the next 3 sessions are conflicting with your schedule in any way, please, 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 the goal is to log on just to make sure the system captures your attendance. I'm just repeating this because I saw some people joined in after the welcoming housekeeping notes. Please log on so that way the system captures your attendance. You could always get the recording at a later date, watch it at a time that's more convenient to you. But the goal is you have to log on so the system generates and recognizes your attendance, because there is absolutely no makeup classes. That's all I wanted to add.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. And just as I said before, Crystal Perman, Susie Joseph, they are my essential team. members here in the Economic Development Division for the City of Fort Lauderdale. If you have any questions about logging in, your email, how you registered versus how you came on, send them to economicdevelopment@fortlauderdale.gov. Everything is spelled out. And again, we will be sending you that information with we'll be comparing how you registered, how you logged on. And as Crystal said, just make sure that you let us know, log on, even if you're not going to be on for all the sessions. So again, thank you for joining us, for taking the time. Thank you, Joshua, for taking the time, and everybody for your questions. Keep watch for our email notices about dates and times for the future beams. May 3rd, we're going to be talking about capital for your small business. It will be at the same time, 6 p.m., same registration code. So again, any additional questions that we haven't been able to get to, we will take note of it and get back to you, or you can send us an email. So again, thank you and have a wonderful evening.